Memphis sun beat down, turning the asphalt shimmer. Inside Graceland, the air conditioner hummed a steady tune, a cool contrast to the sweltering July heat outside. Elvis Presley, restless as ever, paced through the elegant living room, his mind buzzing. He'd already written the song that morning, played a few rounds of touch football, and sung himself hoarse. Now boredom, the insidious enemy of the creative mind, was setting in. His gaze fell upon a stack of empty movie popcorn boxes in the corner, remnants of last night's triple feature. An idea, mischievous and brilliant, sparked in his eyes. He grinned, a wide, boyish grin that could charm the stripes off a tiger. "Boys," he bellowed, his voice echoing through the mansion, "I need your help." Within minutes, the usual suspects gathered: Joe Esposito Lamar, Fike, and of course Red West. Red, with his easy smile and calm demeanor, was often the straight man to Elvis's wilder impulses, but he was also quick-witted and notoriously difficult to prank, that Elvis realized made him the perfect target. Red asked, leaning against the doorframe, a casual confidence about him. He was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, ready for whatever adventure Elvis cooked up. Elvis's grin widened. "We are going to make history, gentlemen. Prank history." He gestured dramatically towards the popcorn boxes. "We need more. Lots more. Every single kernel we can get our hands on." Confusion flickered across their faces, then Lamar, ever the first to catch on, let out a chuckle. "You ain't thinking what I think. You're thinking? Are ya?" "Oh, I am," Elvis confirmed, his eyes glinting. "Red, old pal, your car is about to get a whole lot more fluffy." Red's eyes narrowed playfully. "My Thunderbird, you wouldn't dare." "Oh, I dare," Elvis said, already halfway to the phone. "Esposito, call up every movie theater and concession stand in Memphis. Tell them we need a rush order of their biggest popcorn bags. Not just one or two, I mean truckloads party." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Trucks arrived laden with enormous bags of freshly popped corn, the sweet buttery scent filling the air around Graceland. Elvis, surprisingly, hands-on, directed traffic, laughing maniacally as bag after bag was brought into the garage. Red, meanwhile, was oblivious. He'd gone out on an errand for Elvis, picking up a new guitar from a music store downtown. Perfect. "All right, team," Elvis announced, rolling up his sleeves. "Operation Golden Kernel is a go." They descended upon Red's prized red Thunderbird, parked innocently in the driveway. The car was spotless, gleaming in the sun. It was a beautiful machine, and Elvis felt a twinge of guilt. A very, very tiny twinge. "First, windows down," Elvis commanded expertly, jimmying open a slightly ajar window. "Then, let's get this party started." The sight of hundreds of gallons of popcorn cascading into the sleek interior was both absurd and magnificent. They started with the front seats burying the dashboard, the steering wheel, the gear shift. Then the back, filling every crevice, every nook and cranny. Popcorn spilled out onto the driveway, creating a golden carpet around the car. The smell was intoxicating, a buttery, salty cloud. Lamar hooted with laughter as he dumped an entire sack into the passenger footwell. Joe, usually more reserved, was grinning from ear to ear, shoving handfuls into the glove compartment. Elvis, meanwhile, was meticulously ensuring every available space was packed, even pushed handfuls into the air vents, envisioning Red's surprise when he turned on the AC. By the time they were done, Red's Thunderbird looked like it had driven through a popcorn blizzard. The windows were opaque with kernels, the roof of the car just barely visible beneath the golden mound. It was a masterpiece of playful destruction, a testament to Elvis's unique brand of mischief. "Perfect," Elvis declared, stepping back to admire their handiwork, his hands on his hips, a satisfied smirk on his face. "Absolutely perfect." Just then, a familiar engine hummed down the driveway. Red's other car, his daily driver, pulled up. He parked it and stepped out carrying the new guitar case, whistling a tune. He didn't notice the popcorn at first, focused on getting the guitar safely inside. Then he turned his eyes, initially casual, widened in disbelief. He stopped whistling. His jaw dropped. He stared at his beautiful Thunderbird, now a golden fluffy monument to absurdity. Silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the chirping of crickets. Elvis and the others held their breath, anticipation thrumming. Red walked slowly towards the car, his gaze sweeping over the popcorn-filled interior. He touched a handful of kernels that had spilled onto the hood, picked one up and nibbled it. He looked back at Elvis, his expression unreadable. You didn't," Red said, his voice a low rumble. Elvis shrugged, feigning innocence. "Just trying to make sure your car always has snacks," Red thoughtful. "Wouldn't you say?" A slow smile spread across Red's face, then a chuckle, then a full-blown roar of laughter that shook his shoulders. He threw his head back, laughing until tears streamed down his face. "You maniac!" Red finally gasped, wiping his eyes. "You absolute beautiful maniac." Elvis beamed. Success. The prank had landed perfectly. Red, still chuckling, walked around the car, marveling at the sheer volume of popcorn. This is going to take days to clean out." "Well, you know what they say," Elvis quipped. "A little extra butter makes the job easier." Red shook his head, a genuine grin plastered on his face. He looked at Elvis, his eyes twinkling. "All right, Presley, you just declared war." Elvis clapped his hands together, his eyes sparkling with delight. "Bring it on, old friend. Bring it on." The setting sun cast long shadows over Graceland, turning the popcorn-covered Thunderbird into a golden monument. The air crackled with anticipation. This wasn't just a prank. It was a gauntlet thrown, a challenge accepted. The prank war had officially begun, and everyone knew it was going to be epic. The silence that followed Red's declaration was thick with unspoken promises. Elvis, still basking in the glow of his popcorn triumph, felt the thrill run through him. He knew Red wasn't just blowing smoke. His friend was resourceful, patient, and had a mischievous streak of his own. "So, what's the plan, Red?" Elvis prodded, enjoying the moment. "Gonna fill my Cadillac with cotton candy, or maybe my swimming pool with Jell-O." He knew Red wouldn't go for anything destructive. That wasn't their style. Their pranks were about inconvenience, surprise, and epic levels of laughter. Red simply smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that sent a shiver of anticipation down Elvis's spine. "You'll see, you see." Turned and walked into the house, leaving the popcorn-filled Thunderbird as a bizarre centerpiece in the driveway. The next few days were unusually quiet, too quiet, Elvis thought. He checked under his bed, behind the curtains, even opened his refrigerator with caution, half expecting a shower of rubber chickens or a rogue squirrel, but nothing. Red went about his business calm as ever, helping with fan mail, running errands occasionally, shooting Elvis a knowing look that promised future chaos. "He's planning something big," Lamar whispered one afternoon, eyeing Red suspiciously as he whistled a cheerful tune while polishing Elvis's prized Cadillac. "Too quiet. He's cooking up a storm," Elvis agreed. The suspense was almost worse than the actual prank. He found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, a playful paranoia setting in. This was Red's genius, making the anticipation itself part of the prank. Finally, a week later, the shoe dropped, or rather, the chickens did. It started innocently enough. Elvis had just finished a late-night recording session at RCA Studios in Nashville. He was tired but energized, the music still humming in his head. The drive back to Memphis was long, and he looked forward to slipping into his comfortable bed at Graceland. He pulled his Cadillac into the garage, the automatic door rumbling open. Killed the engine, the silence of the garage wrapping around him. He stretched, yawned, and opened the car door. That's when he heard it, a faint clucking sound. He froze. Clucking in his garage, he peered into the darkness. Nothing. He stepped out of the car, his boot heel crunching on something small. He looked down. A feather, a pristine white feather. A flicker of dread followed by a surge of excitement shot through him. Red, he fumbled for the light switch. The garage lights flickered on, revealing chaos. Every single surface in the garage was covered, not with feathers but with rubber chickens, hundreds of them. They hung from the rafters, dangled from the exposed pipes, sat perched on shells. Some were arranged in a comical choir on the workbench, their plastic beaks open in silent squawk. A whole flock of them sat inside his other cars, filling the passenger seats and spilling out onto the floor mats. It was a rubber chicken invasion of epic proportions. Elvis stared dumbfounded. The clucking sound he'd heard. It was a small battery-operated device, hidden amongst the feathered imposters, emitting a surprisingly realistic chicken chorus. Then he saw it. Taped to the windshield of his Cadillac was a note written in Red's familiar, neat handwriting. Dear E. Thought your cars could use a little more protein. Hope you don't mind the company. Consider this a clucking good start to our little war. Yours in poultry, Red. Elvis burst out laughing. He leaned against the Cadillac, tears streaming down his face as he gasped for air. It was brilliant, so simple, so absurd and utterly Red. The sheer effort of collecting all those rubber chickens, setting them up and orchestrating the clucking symphony, was pure genius. He spent the next hour just wandering through the rubber chicken wonderland, picking up various squawking toys, admiring Red's dedication to the prank. He even found one tucked into his glove compartment, sitting on a pile of his favorite sunglasses. The next morning, Red walked into the kitchen looking innocently cheerful. Sleep well, E? Elvis just grinned, pouring himself a cup of coffee. Like a baby, Red, though I did have some rather interesting dreams about farm animals. He took a sip, watching Red over the rim of his mug. You know, that clucking sound was quite realistic. Almost had me thinking I'd woken up on a farm. Red's smile was wide and genuine. Glad you enjoyed the company, E. Just thought your garage was a little too quiet. Needed some life. Oh, right. Elvis chuckled. Lively and a little yellow. He gestured vaguely in the direction of the garage. You know, I'm almost impressed. Almost is good enough for me. So, what's next? I'm getting a feeling you're not going to let a few hundred rubber chickens stand in your way. Elvis's eyes glinted mischievously. You know me, Red. I never back down from a challenge, especially when it involves making a spectacle. You wanted a war? You got one. And this next one. It's going to be sweet. Red raised an eyebrow, flicker of apprehension in his eyes. Sweet? Huh? What are you going to fill my bathtub with, candy corn? Elvis just winked. You'll see, Red. You'll see. Just make sure you're hungry. He took another sip of coffee, already mentally planning his next move. The rubber chickens were a good first volley. A solid opening gambit. But Elvis Presley didn't just play games. He owned them. And Red was about to find out just how sweet revenge could be. The war was officially escalating. Red's rubber chicken prank was a classic, and Elvis gave him full credit for it. The sheer volume, the unexpected sound, the slight delay in discovering it all perfectly executed. It served its purpose to announce that the prank war was officially on. But now it was Elvis's turn to step it up. He wasn't just thinking of a simple inconvenience. He wanted to create an experience. Okay, boys, Elvis announced at breakfast, pushing aside his half-eaten plate of bacon. Joe and Lamar looked up from their own plates, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Red across the table just eyed him calmly, a slight smirk playing on his lips. He knew what was coming. Red thought he was clever with his feathered friends. Elvis began pacing around the kitchen, and he was very clever, but clever isn't enough. We need spectacle. We need a feast for the eyes. He stopped, pointing dramatically at Red. And my dear Red, you are about to become the guest of honor. Red just chuckled. Oh yeah. What's the theme this time, E? Are you going to turn my bedroom into a giant ball pit? Elvis grinned, a playful glint in his eye. Close, but no cigar. Think bigger. Think sticky. Over the next few days, Graceland became a hub of secretive activity. Elvis, along with Joe and Lamar, moved like shadows, whispering in corners, making frantic phone calls, and disappearing into various rooms for hours. Red watched them with a detached amusement, a confident smirk always present. He knew Elvis was cooking up something grand, but he felt ready. Red survived the popcorn and the chickens. He could handle anything. Elvis's plan was elaborate and required precision timing. He needed Red out of the house for a significant chunk of time. An urgent errand to Nashville to pick up some new studio equipment would do the trick. Red, unsuspecting, readily agreed. The moment Red's car pulled out of the driveway, Elvis barked orders. "Go time, Lamar. Get the truck. Joe, you handle the deterrent kits, and remember absolute secrecy. Not a peep to Red until it's done. Their target, Red's entire bedroom." Elvis's idea was simple, yet effective. Completely transformed the room into a giant, sugary nightmare. They started with the walls. Giant rolls of pink, blue, and yellow cotton candy were stretched and tacked up, transforming the once normal walls into fluffy pastel clouds. It was surprisingly effective, and the room immediately smelled like a carnival. Next came the furniture. Red's bed was buried under a mountain of marshmallows stacked high, like sugary building blocks. His pillows were replaced with oversized gummy bears, and his blanket was a patchwork of rainbow licorice strips, painstakingly woven together. His bedside table groaned under the weight of hundreds of lollipops, their colorful wrappers glinting under the lights. But Elvis wasn't done. He meticulously placed chocolate syrup bottles in every drawer, anticipating the messy surprise. He filled Red's shoes with jelly beans. He even hung strings of popcorn, a cheeky callback to the original prank, from the ceiling fan, making a soft, buttery chime as they swayed. The grand finale was the piece de resistance. Using fishing line, they suspended dozens of glazed donuts from the ceiling, creating a sugary chandelier above the bed. The room looked like it had exploded in a candy factory. A kaleidoscope of color and sugar. "This is insane," E. Joe said, wiping sweat from his brow, his hands sticky with marshmallow residue. "He's going to kill you." Elvis just grinned, admiring their handiwork. "Nah, he'll love it. It's a testament to our friendship, isn't it? Only true friends will go this far to annoy each other." They finished just as the sun began to set, the candy-filled room glowing in the twilight. They packed up their tools, cleaned up the stray wrappers, and retreated to the living room, trying to look as innocent as possible. The waiting game began again. Hours later, Red's car crunched on the gravel driveway. Elvis, Joe, and Lamar exchanged nervous glances, then settled into nonchalant poses on the couch. "Long drive. Got the equipment, E? It's all in the garage." He yawned. "Think I'm gonna hit the sack." He headed down the hallway towards his room. Elvis held his breath, a triumphant smile, fighting to break free. A few seconds later, a muffled thud. Then silence, followed by a loud, astonished gasp. "Presley." Red's voice boomed, a mixture of disbelief and genuine awe. Elvis, Joe, and Lamar practically sprinted down the hall. They found Red standing in his doorway, his mouth agape, staring into the candy wonderland that was once his bedroom. He slowly reached out and touched a cotton candy wall, then plucked a gummy bear from his bed. You turned my room into a gingerbread house for giants." Red finally managed a wide grin stretching across his face. "Not gingerbread," Elvis corrected, beaming. "More like Candy Kingdom. Welcome, King Red, to your sugary domain." Red stepped into the room, sinking his hands into the marshmallow mountain, pulled out a fistful of jelly beans from one of his shoes, looked at them, and then started laughing. It was a hearty, booming laugh that filled the entire house. "You absolute madman," Red roared, throwing a marshmallow at Elvis. This is beyond, this is magnificent," Elvis bowed dramatically. "Only the best for my best prankster." Red shook his head, still laughing. All right, you win this round. This is going to be even harder to clean than the popcorn, but you got me good." Picked up a donut from the ceiling, took a bite, and chewed thoughtfully. "Delicious, too. You really thought of everything." "Always do," Red Elvis replied, high-fiving Joe and Lamar. "Always do." Red looked around his candy-coated sanctuary, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know, I'm almost tempted to just leave it like this. It's kind of cozy." He paused, then looked at Elvis, a glint returning to his eyes. But I can't, because now, it's my turn to think beyond. Way beyond. And trust me, you won't see this one coming. Elvis felt a thrill. Red's casual confidence was a clear sign that the stakes were about to get higher. The candy room was a major hit, but it was also a challenge. Prank war had moved from playful jabs to elaborate, large-scale operations, and everyone knew this was just the beginning. Candy room was indeed a marvel, and it took days to dismantle. Red, ever the good sport, made the most of it, inviting the guys over for dessert raids on his bed, and turning the cleanup into a scavenger hunt for hidden jelly beans. Beneath the laughter, the gears of his mind were turning, plotting his next move. Elvis, meanwhile, was on high alert. He checked his car for hidden surprises, inspected his clothes before putting them on, and even tasted his coffee with suspicion. The suspense was delicious. A constant hum of anticipation. The next prank, however, didn't directly target Elvis. Red, with a cunning twist, decided to involve the entire Memphis Mafia, making everyone a potential victim, thereby sowing distrust and forcing alliances. It began subtly. One morning, Joe Esposito woke up to find his entire closet filled with mismatched socks. Not just a few pairs, but hundreds, perhaps thousands, of single socks of every color, size, and pattern imaginable. His carefully organized wardrobe was a technicolor explosion of lonely footwear. Joe, initially bewildered, then angry, immediately suspected Elvis. "What in the world did you do to my socks?" he yelled, storming into the kitchen where Elvis and Red were having breakfast. Elvis, genuinely surprised, put down his toast. "Socks? What are you talking about?" He looked at Red, who was taking a suspiciously long sip of coffee, his eyes twinkling over the rim. Red cleared his throat. "Well, Joe, sometimes a man just needs to expand his horizons. And his sock drawer. You're welcome." Joe stared at Red then. At Elvis. The realization dawned on him. It was you, Red. Consider it a friendly reminder that in a prank war, no one is truly safe. And also that you might want to invest in a sock matching service. The next day, Lamar Fike found his beloved collection of rare comic books meticulously rearranged by color, then by page count, and finally by the number of vowels in the title. Not only that, but every single speech bubble had been carefully filled in with glitter glue. His precious, irreplaceable comics were now sparkly, sticky, and utterly ruined for resale. Though surprisingly beautiful in a weird, shimmering way, Lamar's howl of outrage echoed through Graceland. "My comics! My precious, irreplaceable comic!" He stomped into the living room, holding up a sparkling issue of Superman. "Elvis, you glitter-bombing fiend." Elvis threw up his hands in surrender. "Lamar, I swear on my blue suede shoes, I didn't touch your comics." He looked at Red, who was humming innocently, filing his nails. Red looked up, a picture of angelic innocence. "Oh, Lamar, you found my art project. I thought they needed a little sparkle, you know, to truly capture the magic within." Lamar stared at Red, then back at his glitter-encrusted Superman. "Sparkle? You coated Superman in glitter." Red just shrugged. "Adds a certain heroic shimmer, don't you think?" Now, the Memphis Mafia was in an uproar. Joe and Lamar, previously neutral, were officially drawn into the war, though they weren't sure which side they were on. They knew Red was behind their misery, but they also knew Elvis was the one who started it all. "This is getting out of hand, Joe grumbled later that day, trying to separate his socks. "He's turning us against each other." Elvis, however, was delighted. "Precisely. It's brilliant. He's expanding the battlefield. This is chess, boys, not checkers." He slapped Red on the back as he walked by. "Good move, Red. Very good move. But you forget, I have friends too." The dynamic shifted. The house was filled with a playful paranoia. Plates of cookies appeared mysteriously, only to be found filled with salt. Beds were short-sheeted. Alarm clocks were reset to absurd times. Small, harmless, but utterly annoying pranks became the norm. Everyone suspected. Everyone else. Elvis, however, had an idea. He knew Red's Achilles heel. His meticulously maintained classic car, a vintage Ford Fairlane. Red cherished it more than almost anything. "All right, Joe Lamard," Elvis whispered conspiratorially. "Red's been targeting you too. Now it's time to show him what happens when you mess with the family." Joe and Lamar, still seething from their own pranks, were easily convinced. "What's the plan?" Lamar asked, his eyes gleaming with mischievous intent. They carefully, meticulously wrapped Red's Fairlane, every inch of it. The tires, the windows, the mirrors, the antenna. They even managed to get it into the exhaust pipe. When they were done, the classic car looked like a giant ghostly mummy gleaming white under the moonlight. Taped to the front windshield was a note written in Elvis's flamboyant scrawl. "Dear Red, thought your Fairlane was looking a little unwrapped. Don't worry, it's all clean and very soft. Collateral damage is a two-way street. Sincerely, the United Pranksters of Graceland, formerly known as your friends." The next morning, Red walked out to his garage whistling. He stopped dead in his tracks. His beautiful Fairlane, entombed in a shroud of luxury toilet paper, stood silently. He stared at it for a long moment, then slowly reached out and touched the soft paper. He looked up, meeting Elvis's gaze from the kitchen window. Elvis gave him a triumphant thumbs up. Red just shook his head, a slow smile spreading across his face. He chuckled, then burst into laughter. "You guys, you actually did it. This is art." He picked up the note, read it, and then held it up. "The United Pranksters. Huh, you guys are gonna regret that." Elvis grinned. He knew it. This wasn't just a two-man war anymore. The battlefield had expanded. And something told him Red's retaliation, now fueled by two other victims, was going to be epic. Pranks were getting bigger, more creative, and definitely more personal. The war was officially escalating into an all-out hilarious brawl. Toilet-papered Fairlane was a sight to behold, and Red, after taking dozens of photos, spent the better part of the day carefully unwrapping his prized car. He never showed anger, only a deeper resolve. "United Pranksters, huh?" He'd muttered, a mischievous glint in his eye. "We'll see about that." The next few days were tense. Everyone knew Red was plotting something big, something that would hit back at all of them. The usual smaller pranks continued. A plastic spider in Elvis's boot, a fake cockroach in Lamar's, cereal, Joe's bed rearranged to look like a giant swastika, a prank Elvis in Pawas. But the tension for Red's master plan grew. Elvis had a busy week ahead. A charity event, a television appearance, and a small private concert for some local dignitaries. He was constantly surrounded by people making a direct, Graceland-based prank. Difficult for Red. Red was smart. He wouldn't try anything that could truly embarrass Elvis publicly or damage his reputation, but he would get close, dangerously close. The first hint came at the charity event. Elvis was signing autographs, flashing his famous smile. When he noticed something odd every time he picked up a pen, it felt off. It was slightly sticky and left a faint glittery residue on his fingers. He looked closely. His entire pen case was filled with pens that had been meticulously coated in clear glue and then sprinkled with the finest iridescent glitter. He looked up and across the room, catching Red's eye. Red was volunteering at the refreshment stand, looking utterly innocent. Wiping down the counter, he gave Elvis a slow, subtle wink. Elvis stifled a laugh, signing an autograph with a sparkling hand. He spent the rest of the evening leaving a trail of glitter everywhere he went. On fans' album covers, on his manager, Colonel Tom Parker's suit jacket, even on the microphone during a brief speech. Colonel Parker, ever the stickler for professionalism, looked bewildered by the sudden sparkling phenomenon, grumbling about Elvis's new shiny phase. Elvis just shrugged, trying to keep a straight face. The next day, during the television appearance, Red's cunning was even more apparent. Elvis was on a live talk show, charming the host and the audience with his wit and charisma. He was halfway through a story about growing up in Tupelo when he felt a strange sensation on his face, a tickle. He suddenly reached up and brushed his cheek. Nothing. A moment later, the tickle returned. Stronger this time, he glanced at the monitor. His reflection stared back, and there, perched precariously on the tip of his nose, was a tiny, perfectly tied red bow. A tiny red silk bow like something you'd put on a kitten. He froze. His mind raced. How? When? He hadn't felt a thing. He knew instantly Red. Somehow, Red had managed to attach a tiny bow to his nose without him noticing. Right before a live television broadcast, the sheer audacity. Elvis had two choices. Ignore it, and let the world see him with a tiny bow on his nose, or discreetly remove it and potentially draw more attention. He chose the latter, subtly rubbing his nose as if it itched, flicking the bow off and catching it in his palm. He continued his story without missing a beat, a silent challenge in his eyes. Later, backshed, he found Red calmly folding towels. "All right, you clown," Elvis said, holding up the tiny red bow. "How in the world did you manage this?" Red just grinned, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Magic-y, pure magic, or maybe just a very long, very sticky fishing line and a whole lot of patience." He winked. "Thought you needed a little something extra to go with your charming personality on TV." Elvis shook his head, a genuine smile breaking through. "You're good, Red, you're really good. You almost got me to look like a fool on national television." "Almost," Red countered, "is the key word. We're not trying to hurt your image, just enhance it playfully." The final act of Red's public near-miss campaign came during the private concert. Elvis was belting out a ballad lost in the music, his eyes closed. When he opened them for the chorus, he glanced down at his microphone. It wasn't his microphone, his hand was holding a banana. A ripe yellow banana complete with a small hand-drawn microphone grill on the tip with a Sharpie. His actual microphone was lying discreetly on the stage floor connected to the court. Red lurking in the shadows backstage must have swapped them out during a brief blackout. Between songs, for a split second, Elvis was stunned. Then a wave of uncontrollable laughter threatened to overwhelm him. He couldn't sing. Pressed his lips together, shaking with silent mirth, trying to finish the song while holding a banana. The audience, bless their hearts, just thought. He was overwhelmed by emotion. He managed to switch them back during a quick musical interlude, his face flushed but his eyes sparkling. After the show, he cornered Red, who was enjoying a slice of apple pie. "A banana, Red? Really, you had me singing into a banana?" Red shrugged, feigning innocence. "Well, you always say you want to be down to earth. Figured a little fruit wouldn't hurt." He took a bite of his pie. "Besides, you look like you were really getting into it, very organic." Elvis couldn't help but laugh. Red's pranks were so clever, so close to the edge of public embarrassment, but always managed to pull back before any real damage was done. It was a testament to their mutual respect and understanding of each other's limits. "All right, Red," Elvis said, a new resolve in his voice. "You've had your fun with the subtle jabs and the near misses. But now it's my turn, and this next one, buddy, is going to be a classic. A truly unforgettable, Grackle-sized spectacle. You thought the candy room was big. You ain't seen nothing yet." "Oh yeah, what's the theme this time, Are you gonna fill my whole house with glitter?" Elvis just winked. "Let's just say, Red, you might want to invest in a very, very large fishing net. You're about to get caught in a web of my own making." The war was escalating once more, and this time Elvis was aiming for a grand theatrical comeback. Red's recent pranks, especially the ones that skirted the edge of public visibility, fueled Elvis's competitive fire. He knew Red understood the boundaries, never anything truly harmful or reputation damaging, but the sheer audacity of the banana microphone on stage was a challenge Elvis couldn't ignore. This time he needed a prank that was not just big, but theatrical, almost cinematic. We need something that embodies pure chaos, but also a sense of wonder, Elvis mused to Joe and Lamar, pacing his living room. The guys were still reeling from the glitter and banana incidents, grumbling good-naturedly about Red's sneakiness. How about filling his entire car with balloons again? Joe suggested. Ever practical. Elvis shook his head. Too simple. Red expects balloons. He expects mess. We need to go beyond the mess. We need illusion, and a lot of it. His idea was born from a late-night B-movie marathon. A giant spiderweb. Not just any spiderweb, but one so elaborate, so intricate, that it would completely engulf Red's bedroom, turning it into a giant, spooky cocoon, and in the center of the web, a truly unforgettable surprise. All right, here's the plan, Elvis began, sketching furiously on a notepad. Lamar, you're on web material duty. Think strong, stretchy but visually convincing. White yarn, fishing line, maybe some special effects. Cobweb spray. Joe, you're in charge of the decorations. Spiders, big ones. Small ones, lots of them. And the grand finale, a giant animatronic spider. One that moves. Lamar's eyes widened. An animatronic spider. Where are we going to get one of those? Elvis just grinned. Money talks, boys, and if money doesn't, a little charm and a lot of persuasion usually do the trick. I've already put in a call to a special effects company in Hollywood. They owe me a favor. The next few days were a whirlwind of secret deliveries and clandestine installations. Large boxes arrived, marked fragile stage props. Elvis and the boys turned Red's bedroom into a fortress of secrecy, taping blankets over the windows and locking the door from the inside when they were. Red, sensing a major operation, just smiled knowingly, occasionally knocking on the door and asking, "Everything all right in there? Fellas, sounds like you're building a rocket ship." "Just some spring cleaning," Elvis would holler back, trying to sound nonchalant. They stretched thick white yarn from corner to corner, floor to ceiling, painstakingly weaving an intricate, multi-layered web that filled every inch of the room. They draped thinner, almost invisible fishing line over the bed and furniture, creating a misty, ethereal effect. Then came the special effects, spray giving everything an eerie gossamer sheen. Hundreds of plastic spiders, ranging from tiny, realistic ones to oversized, fuzzy monsters, were strategically placed. Some dangled from the ceiling, others crawled up the walls, and a few were carefully tucked into Red shoes and clothing, waiting to be discovered. The centerpiece, however, was the animatronic spider. It was massive, nearly 3 feet across, with glowing red eyes and articulated legs. They carefully positioned it directly above Red's bed, rigging it with a remote control so it could slowly descend. When activated, it looked terrifyingly real in the dim light. "This is truly evil," Lamar whispered, stepping back to admire their handiwork, a shudder running down his spine. "He's gonna scream like a little girl," Elvis chuckled. "That's the idea, Lamar. He put a bow on my nose on national television. A little fright is the least he deserves." Finally, after 3 days of intense, painstaking work, the room was ready. It was a masterpiece of creepy artistry. A true arachnophobe's nightmare. Elvis made sure Red would be the first to discover it. He set up a fake emergency. "Red emergency. My guitar case, it's locked, and the key is in your room. I need it now. I gotta practice for a late-night session." Red, ever dependable, rushed to his room, grumbling good-naturedly about Elvis's forgetfulness. Elvis, Joe, and Lamar waited just outside the door, barely breathing, trying to stifle their laughter. Red opened the door. He took one step in. The room was bathed in the eerie glow of the animatronic spider's red eyes, the intricate web, gleaming faintly, stretched everywhere. The air was thick with the scent of manufactured cobweb silence. A long, drawn-out silence. Then a high-pitched guttural sound that was somewhere between a yelp and a scream tore through the air. "Holy Mother O.F. spiders!" Red roared, stumbling backward, tripping over his own feet, and landing with a thud in the hallway. Elvis couldn't hold it in anymore. He burst out laughing quickly, joined by Joe and Lamar, their mirth echoing through the house. Red sprawled on the floor, pointed a trembling finger at the doorway. What in the name of all that is creepy did you do?" Elvis, wiping tears from his eyes, stepped into the room and pressed the remote control. The giant spider slowly, menacingly began to descend towards Red's bed, its red eyes glowing brighter. Red yelped again, scrambling backward, bumping into Lamar. "Make it stop, you fiend!" Elvis laughed, pressing the button to make the spider ascend again. "You like it. Red took us 3 days. It's a custom job, just for you." Red slowly got to his feet. Still looking pale, he peered into the room, now lit by normal lights. The webs were still everywhere, the spiders still lurking, but the immediate terror of the descending monster had subsided. He stepped inside, carefully navigating the web-filled space. Touched a fake spider, then pulled one out of his pillow. He looked at the giant animatronic spider, then at Elvis. "You absolute, conniving, terrifying genius," Red said, shaking his head. "I hate you. I really, truly hate you for this." But his eyes, despite the feigned horror, were dancing with a mix of awe and admiration. This is a masterpiece. The best one yet. You really outdid yourself. Only the best for my best friend, Red. Only the best." Red looked around the room, then at the giant spider. "So are we done then? Because I don't think I can top this. This is the Mount Everest of pranks." Elvis, however, just smiled. "Oh, Red, we're never done. This is merely a prelude, but I will say this, my friend. What comes next will Inez 1. Red's reaction to the spiderweb prank was exactly what Elvis had hoped for. A mixture of genuine fright and delighted appreciation. It set a new bar for elaborate pranks, but Elvis knew Red would be back with something equally cunning. And with Elvis's hint about a public prank, the anticipation among the Memphis Mafia reached fever pitch. "A public prank, Joe had asked. "Colonel Parker will have your hide. You can't risk your image." Elvis just smiled mysteriously. "Don't worry, Joe. It won't be embarrassing. It'll be magical. And Red will be the star whether he knows it or not." Elvis's grand plan revolved around the upcoming annual Memphis Charity Gala, a high-profile event where he was scheduled to make a special appearance and perhaps perform a few songs. Red, as always, would be by his side, helping manage the crowd and ensuring security. This was the perfect stage for Elvis's masterpiece. He spent days secretly planning, enlisting the help of a local special effects wizard he'd befriended on a movie set, and even subtly looping in a few of the more adventurous members of the gala's organizing committee, explaining it as a Super C, of course. Concept was simple, but the execution was complex. Make Red West fly, not literally, of course. But Elvis intended to create the illusion of. Commissioned a custom-made harness designed to be worn discreetly under Red's tuxedo. This harness would be connected to nearly invisible wires, strung through the ceiling of the grand ballroom, leading to a concealed police system, operated by Joe and Lamar. In a hidden control booth above. "You really think we can pull this off, Lamar asked, nervously eyeing the intricate setup of wires and pulleys vexed. "It's a lot of moving parts." "We have to," Elvis insisted, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "This isn't just a prank, boys. It's a statement, a grand gesture of our friendship, and it's going to be hilarious." The night of the gala arrived. The ballroom was packed with Memphis's elite, glittering in their finest clothes. Elvis worked the room, charming everyone. Subtly, positioned himself near Red. As the event progressed, Red, looking sharp in his tuxedo, was completely oblivious. He'd sing a dramatic soaring ballad and, at the climax as the spotlight hit him, Red, positioned near the stage, would suddenly, inexplicably, float upwards. Elvis took the stage, the crowd erupting in applause. He launched into "Can't Help Falling in Love," his voice rich and powerful. He sang beautifully, making eye contact with Red, who was standing confidently near the edge of the stage, his arms crossed, a small, proud smile on his face. As the song reached its emotional crescendo, Elvis subtly nodded towards Joe and Lamar in their hidden booth. Red suddenly felt a strange tug around his midsection. He frowned, looking down, then up. Before he could react, he felt himself lift. Slowly, gracefully, he began to float upwards, his feet leaving the ground. The crowd gasped. A few people screamed. Then, a collective murmur of disbelief spread through the ballroom. Red, suspended in midair, his face a mask of utter bewilderment, looked like a tuxedo-clad angel. Elvis, still singing, kept a straight face, his eyes fixed on Red. He poured all his emotion into the final lines of the song, his voice soaring. Red, meanwhile, was flailing slightly, trying to figure out what was happening. He looked at Elvis, then at the ceiling, then back at Elvis, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning realization. He saw a slight, mischievous smirk on Elvis's face. Presley. Red's voice, though muffled by the music, was unmistakable, a mixture of outrage and pure, unadulterated hilarity. He was still suspended in the air as Elvis finished his song, the final note lingering in the air. The crowd erupted in a roar of applause, some still gasping at the spectacle, others laughing uncontrollably. Elvis stepped forward, taking the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice smooth and playful, "you've just witnessed a new kind of aerial ballet, a tribute to my dear friend Red West, who apparently has a secret talent for defying gravity." Red, now slowly descending his feet, finally touching the ground, was red-faced, but a wide, disbelieving grin was breaking through. He looked at the almost invisible wires, then at Elvis. You made me fly." "Indeed I did, my friend," Elvis chuckled, pulling Red into a hug, then a playful headlock. "Consider it my magnum opus, the grandest prank in the history of Graceland." The audience was still buzzing, pulling on cameras, asking questions. Colonel Parker, who had nearly choked on his cigar, was now looking a mixture of furious and secretly amused. "Elvis, what in blazes was that? You nearly gave everyone heart attacks." "Just a little something to make the gala unforgettable, Colonel," Elvis replied, winking. "And it worked, didn't it?" Red finally recovered, just stared at Elvis, then at the wires, then back at the bewildered crowd. He burst out laughing, a deep, booming laugh that carried over the crowd's chatter. "You're insane, E," Red gasped, wiping tears from his eyes. "Absolutely insane. That was beyond anything. You actually made me fly." "Only for you, Red," Elvis said, clapping him on the back. "Only for you. Now, what do you say? Is the score settled?" Red looked around the room, then at the lingering smiles and laughter of the crowd. He looked at Elvis, his eyes shining with genuine affection and a hint of something else, a newfound respect for Elvis's boundless creativity. "Settled?" Red repeated, a mischievous glint returning to his eyes. "Oh, E, this isn't settled. This is just the opening act. You opened the door to public spectacle. Now it's my turn to walk through it, and trust me, you won't see this one coming." Elvis felt a thrilling chill run down his spine. He had truly upped the ante, and Red, being Red, was not backing down. The masterpiece had been executed, but the war, it seemed, was far from over. In fact, it was just reaching its most epic stage. The Flying Red prank became the stuff of legend within Memphis circles. The local papers ran bewildered headlines asking if Elvis had secretly discovered levitation. Colonel Parker raged and conceded it had certainly generated buzz. Red, for his part, was a good sport, recounting the story with a mix of disbelief and pride, even signing a few autographs as the Flying West. But beneath the laughter and the continued low-level pranks around Graceland, a subtle shift occurred. The pranks were getting bigger, requiring more time, more resources, and more elaborate planning. The novelty was still there, but the sheer effort was starting to wear a little. Elvis noticed it first. He'd catch Red yawning more often, or looking a little weary after setting up some elaborate booby trap involving a cascade of confetti or a flock of trained pigeons. A true, though temporary, headache for the Graceland staff. And Elvis himself was feeling the pressure of outdoing himself. After the flying trick, what could possibly top it without genuinely endangering someone or crossing a line? He'd lie awake at night, brainstorming, discarding ideas as too small, too dangerous, or just too much work. One evening, Elvis found Red in the garage, meticulously cleaning the dust off his Fairlane, which had thankfully survived its toilet paper ordeal. The garage was quiet, the air thick with the smell of polish. "Hey, Red," Elvis said, leaning against the doorframe. "Everything all right?" "You look tired," Red sighed, wiping his brow with a rag. "Just this prank war, eh?" "It's getting a little elaborate, isn't it? I mean the pigeons. Seriously, you had me chasing birds for an hour." Elvis chuckled. "They were doves, red doves of peace, and they were majestic." "They were a mess is what they were," Red countered, but there was no real heat in his voice. "And your glitter bombs at my last card game took me 3 days to get that stuff out of my hair." Elvis nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Yeah, I guess it is. I mean the flying thing. That took a lot out of us, and I know you're planning something big. I can feel it." Red put down his rag, turning to face Elvis. I've got something truly epic brewing. Something that's going to make that flying trick look like a walk in the park." Paused and added softer, "But to be honest, E, it's a lot of work, and I'm not sure how much longer we can keep this up without someone accidentally getting hurt, or really truly mad." A rare moment of vulnerability passed between them. Pranks were an expression of their affection, their playful rivalry. But at what point did the fun outweigh the effort, or even the potential risk? "Yeah," Elvis said, his voice quiet. "I've been thinking the same thing. I mean, I love our little war, Red. It's kept us laughing, kept us on our toes, but it's almost like we're trying to outdo ourselves too much, to prove something." Red nodded slowly. "Exactly. And we've already proven it, haven't we? That we're both completely insane, and that we love to mess with each other." He smiled. "And that we've got friends crazy enough to help us." The conversation hung in the air, weighty and unspoken. They both knew the war was winding down, not because of anger, but because it had reached its natural exhausting peak. "So what is it?" Elvis finally asked, breaking the silence. "The big one. What's the grand finale you've got planned?" Red's eyes lit up, the weariness temporarily forgotten. "Oh, E, you're gonna love it. It's going to involve a lot of water and a very, very public audience. But in a way that's completely harmless. I promise it's less about a scare and more about a grand spectacle of ridiculousness." Elvis felt a surge of excitement, quickly followed by relief. A water prank, public but harmless. That sounded like a perfect send-off. "Tell you what," Elvis said, pushing off the doorframe. "You pull this last one, the best one you've got, and then we call a truce. A permanent. No more pranks. Truce." Red considered this, a thoughtful look on his face. "You mean it, E? No more rubber chickens? No more candy rooms?" "No more," Elvis confirmed, holding out his hand. "Just friendship, and maybe a lot of stories to tell the grandkids." Red slowly extended his hand, meeting Elvis's in a firm grip. "Deal, E? But you're gonna regret this, because this last one, it's going to be so epic. You're gonna wish you'd never given me the chance." Elvis grinned. "Bring it on, Red. Bring it on." He knew Red would pull out all the stops for this final prank. He also knew it would be a fitting, hilarious, and heartwarming end to their epic, ridiculous war. The exhaustion might be creeping in, but the love for the game and for each other was stronger than ever. The stage was set for the ultimate prank, and the truce was sealed. With the unspoken truce agreed upon, the atmosphere at Graceland shifted. The low-level pranks ceased. The playful paranoia vanished. Instead, a new kind of energy took over, the shared excitement of preparing for Red's ultimate final prank. Elvis was no longer just the target. He was now a collaborator, eager to see Red's genius unleashed one last time. "So, Red, the lots of water thing?" Elvis prodded one morning over coffee. "Are we talking about filling my bathtub with ice cubes, or a synchronized swimming routine in the fountain?" Red just smiled enigmatically. "Think bigger. Much bigger. Think a public spectacle. Something memorable. Something that will be talked about for years." Red's plan was audacious. It involved the annual Memphis River Arts Festival, a massive outdoor event held along the Mississippi River. Specifically, it involved the main stage area where Elvis was scheduled to make a surprise appearance and address the crowd. Red's target wasn't Elvis directly, but the moment. "We're going to build a giant water balloon," Red explained, sketching on a napkin. "Not a small one, I mean, like a 10-foot-tall, transparent sphere filled with hundreds of smaller, colorful water balloons." Elvis's jaw dropped. 10-foot water balloon, Red? That's insane. How are we going to lift it? And where are we even going to get something like that? Details. Red waved a hand dismissively. "I've already contacted a company that makes custom inflatables for parades, and for lifting, we'll use a crane discreetly hidden behind the stage. It's all about timing." Concept was simple. As Elvis began his speech, the giant water balloon would descend slowly, majestically, directly over the stage. Then, at a predetermined moment, it would burst, showering the stage, and whoever was on it, with hundreds of smaller, brightly colored water balloons. "Not dangerous," Red reassured him, seeing the slight concern in Elvis's eyes. "The water balloons will be small, filled with just enough water to make a splash, not a bruise. And the main sphere will be designed to break apart safely. It's all about the visual effect, the surprise, the ridiculousness." Elvis leaned back in his chair, a slow grin spreading across his face. "Red, you magnificent maniac. This is brilliant. A glorious, watery finale." The planning became an elaborate covert operation. Red, with Joe and Lamar now fully on his side as co-conspirators, worked tirelessly. They secured a discreet area near the festival grounds for assembling the giant sphere. They filled hundreds upon hundreds of small balloons with water, using food coloring to make them vibrant shades of blue, green, yellow, and red. Graceland's pool house was converted into a balloon factory, the floor covered in colorful, squishy spheres. They meticulously tested the giant transparent sphere, ensuring it was strong enough to hold the weight, yet designed to burst cleanly. They practiced the crane operation, ensuring a smooth, silent descent. They even planned the perfect moment for Elvis to be on stage, ensuring he was standing in the exact right spot. "This is costing a fortune, Red," Elvis remarked one afternoon, watching the team load boxes of water balloons onto a truck. Red shrugged. "Consider it an investment in memories. And payback for the popcorn, the chickens, the candy, the spiders, and the flying. Besides, it's all going on your tab anyway." Elvis laughed, shaking his head. "You wouldn't have it any other way. This was more than just a prank. It was a shared adventure, a culmination of months of playful warfare. It was a testament to their enduring friendship and their mutual love for the absurd." The day of the festival arrived bright and sunny. The atmosphere was electric. Elvis made his way through the crowds, shaking hands, signing autographs, the picture of a relaxed, charming superstar. Red, Joe, and Lamar moved like ninjas, ensuring all the final preparations were in place. As Elvis walked towards the main stage, he saw the giant sphere partially obscured by scaffolding and banners. Swaying gently above his heart, thumped with anticipation. This was it, the grand finale. He stepped onto the stage, tipped the microphone, flashed his $1 million smile, and began to speak, his eyes scanning the crowd looking for Red. Red was there standing to the side, giving him a subtle thumbs up. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elvis began, his voice amplified across the festival grounds, "it's an honor to be here today." He continued his speech, talking about the beauty of Memphis, the joy of music, the importance of community. All the while, he could feel the subtle shift in the air, the collective intake of breath from the crew behind the stage. He knew what was coming. Red's signal was a seemingly innocent cough. Elvis, barely suppressing a grin, continued talking subtly, positioned himself in the center of the stage directly beneath the giant sphere. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the enormous transparent water balloon began its descent. It hung in the air, a shimmering, rainbow-filled orb directly above Elvis. The crowd, engrossed in his speech, hadn't noticed yet. This was it, culmination of weeks of planning, of a war fought with popcorn, chickens, candy, spiders, and even levitation. This was the moment the stage was set. The audience was ready, and Elvis the superstar was about to get very, very wet. Elvis continued his speech, his eyes twinkling, barely able to contain his excitement. He could feel the giant water balloon, a silent, shimmering presence descending above him. He glanced at Red, who was now subtly counting down with his fingers, a triumphant grin on his face. "And it's with that spirit of community and good cheer," Elvis boomed, reaching his planned crescendo, "that I say, let the good times roll, Memphis." At that exact moment, Red dropped his hand, and with a soft whooshing sound, the giant transparent sphere burst. It wasn't an explosion, but a gentle, graceful release. The outer membrane rippled and split, and hundreds of brightly colored water balloons cascaded downwards, a shimmering, multicolored rain. Elvis, perfectly positioned, was instantly enveloped in a torrent of soft, squishy splashes. Yellow, blue, green, and red balloons bounced off his head, shoulders, and suit, bursting on impact, painting him in a vibrant, temporary mosaic of color. Water streamed down his face, soaking his hair and tuxedo. The crowd gasped. A collective "oh" rippled through the festival grounds, followed by a moment of stunned silence. Then a few chuckles, then a roar of laughter that swept across the audience like a wave. Elvis stood there dripping wet, his hair plastered to his forehead, his custom-made tuxedo clinging to him. He looked like a masterpiece of abstract art painted by 1,000 tiny joyful explosions. He blinked, shaking his head, a wide, genuine grin splitting his face. He looked directly at Red, who was now roaring with laughter, clutching his stomach, tears streaming down his face. Joe and Lamar, from their vantage point, were doubled over, unable to speak. "Well, Red," Elvis spluttered, wiping water from his eyes, his voice dripping with playful sarcasm, "you certainly know how to make an exit and an entrance and a colorful mess." Red, still laughing, managed to gasp, "You said let the good times roll, E. I just helped them roll all over you." The crowd was still roaring, delighted by the unexpected spectacle. Many people were pulling out their cameras, snapping photos of the drenched superstar. It wasn't embarrassing. It was endearing. It was the kind of spontaneous, hilarious moment that made Elvis even more beloved. Elvis raised his hands, a dramatic, soaked gesture. All right. You win. Red, you win. This is it. The prank war is officially over." Red, finally composing himself, walked onto the stage, still grinning ear to ear. He put an arm around Elvis's wet shoulders. "You heard the man, folks. The king has surrendered. My work here is done." Elvis clapped Red on the back, a genuine heartwarming laugh escaping him. "And what a work it was, my friend, from popcorn to flying. And now, this was truly epic." The festival grounds buzzed with excited chatter. People were already talking about the legend of the Water Balloon King and his prankster friend. Colonel Tom Parker, who had nearly fainted when the sphere burst, was now seen shaking his head in amused exasperation, realizing that this unexpected spectacle might actually be good for publicity. Later that evening, back at Graceland, Elvis was wrapped in a bathrobe, sipping hot tea. Red, fresh from a shower, joined him in the living room. "So that's it, huh?" Red said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "No more pranks?" Elvis nodded. "No more pranks. We went out with a bang, Red, or, a splash. We showed everyone what true friendship looks like. Absolute glorious mayhem." Red chuckled. "I'm actually going to miss it a little. The planning, the sneaking around, the constant paranoia." "Me too," Elvis admitted. "But honestly, my friend, my nerves can't take it anymore, and my dry cleaning bill is astronomical." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the echo of laughter still lingering in the air. The prank war had been more than just a series of silly jokes. It had been a testament to their bond, to the trust they shared, and to the sheer joy they found in each other's company. It proved that even with fame and fortune, the simple pleasure of a good laugh with a true friend was what mattered most. "Red," Elvis said, breaking the silence, a thoughtful look on his face, "that popcorn in your car, all those months ago, I never thought it would lead to all this to you, making me look like a walking rainbow on stage." Red grinned. "And I never thought I'd be suspended from a ceiling at a gala. Guess we both underestimated each other, huh?" Elvis reached over and playfully ruffled Red's hair. "Guess so, but you know what, I wouldn't trade a single moment of it, not for anything." Red smiled, a warm, genuine smile. "Me neither, me neither." Popcorn had led to a magnificent, memorable saga of laughter, surprise, and enduring friendship. Graceland would forever hold the echoes of their elaborate schemes, their shared secrets, and the unbreakable bond between Elvis Presley and his best friend, Red West. And everyone knew this was a story they'd tell for the rest of their lives. Always with a chuckle, always with a smile, and always with a warmth in their hearts.